All right, here we are, SAT 22 for week 9. It's another student-produced response question, so we'll have to type in our answer, no multiple choices. So let's take a look at the question. One of the factors of 2x cubed plus 42x squared plus 208x is x plus b, where b is a positive constant. What is the smallest possible value of b? So our results are this. So you take a look, and there seems to be one clear winner here, where 75 of us, which was a little bit shy of 60%, said something in between. It looks like a 4 and a 9, something in between there. All right, so the only thing that comes, well, nothing even comes close, honestly. But you can see that there's a couple that just stick out from the bottom just a little bit. And reading from left to right, these are the ones that say, it looks like something like 5.5 or whatever. I believe that one was 0, the first one, and then you get a 4, and then between 9 and 16, I think that one was like 13. So I wonder what that answer actually is. In a moment, we will look. But first, how did you rate this one? Well, you can see that it is mostly rated a 3, but it is skewed a little bit towards the harder side. So I'm going to say medium to medium hard here. Okay, so question is, can Desmos help us with this question? And the answer to that is yeah, pretty much. It can do most of the work, but you still have to interpret your answer. We'll see what that looks like. So it basically is asking us to factor this thing. And maybe you're like, oh, I don't know about factoring. Factoring's pretty tough, which it is. However, like I said, Desmos can totally help us out here. And the way that I'm going to type this in is, I'm going to set this as y is equal to a 2x cubed plus 42x squared plus 208x. Now, you don't have to do the y equals because Desmos, it just defaults to that. So if you just type in the actual expression instead of the function, then yeah, it'll still give you the answer. You just got to know where to look. And where to look, of course, is where y is equal to 0, which is on the x-axis. So let's just go ahead and type that thing in and see what the Desmos tells us. Boom. All right, so if I type this in as y is equal to, I had a 2 and an x squared. No, it wasn't. It was cubed. All right, so let me back that up a little bit. Make that a cubed. Take it out of the exponent, and then plus 42x squared. And then plus, there's the classic parabola. No, it's not a parabola. It can't be a parabola. It's cubed. And then plus 208x. I think that is. Okay. Now, if you maybe zoom just a little bit, you'll be able to see where this graph hits the x-axis. Now, this is not parabolic because that would be squared. You can see that there's this S-looking shape here. It's got an extra turning point, but we're looking specifically at where this thing crosses the x-axis. So we've got 3 points here, and one of them is 0, one of them is -8, and one of them is -13. But guess what? None of them is your answer. Here, let me show you why. So let me snag a screenshot of this and pull this guy right in here. And there you are. So when we're looking at the graph of this thing and we're looking at x-intercepts here, let's take this one first of all. My x-intercept is -8. In other words, x is equal to -8. Now, this is not the factor. If I wanted the factor, I essentially have to take this -8 and I have to add it over here to the other side of the equation. And I have x plus 8 is equal to 0. In other words, when I look at this equation, it is x is equal to -8, which makes this thing 0, and x plus 8 is the actual factor, okay? All right, so here's the first one, and I can do the same exact thing over here on this -13. Yes, x is equal to -13, but that's not the factor. I have to add the 13 over. X plus 13 is equal to 0. And there is a third factor. I have cubic. I should expect to have 3 factors. I have 3 x-intercepts, unless they're imaginary, whatever the heck that means. And then we have this last one here as just x is equal to 0. There's nothing to subtract over to the other side. So when I'm looking at factors here, here's what it looks like. I have, if I put the little y equals again, y equals, one of my factors is x. It's the same thing as like x plus 0 if you wanted to, but just x. And then the next one is x plus 8. And then the next one is x plus 13. Okay, so we've kind of factored it. There's something missing though. Maybe it's not obvious to you, but if you look at what we started with, there is this extra factor of 2 that's not accounted for here. So like if you were to FOIL this out, this x gets multiplied times this x, you get x cubed, but there's no 2 here. Let me show you what I mean by that. You can always check these factors by just plugging this sucker back into Desmos. And I'll do that here on line number 2, as in y is equal to, and then let's see, we have an x out front, and then parentheses x plus 8. And what you're going to see is that it's going to touch all of our x-intercepts, but the graph is not exactly going to line up. X plus 13. You can see that here if I zoom out. It doesn't exactly match up. And the reason why is because number 1 up here, the red graph, is scaled by a factor of 2. So if I just come right in here, arrow over, I put a little extra 2 in here, you'll see that it exactly matches up. So we know that we have the correct factors, right? Now let's go back to the original question so that we can see what our answer is supposed to be. So it does say, what is the small, it's supposed to look like this, x plus b, which is what our factors look like, right? And we're looking for the smallest possible value for this b, smallest possible value, wait a minute, positive constant. Let me highlight that, positive constant, which eliminates the 0 because this one is, like I was saying before, is the same thing as x plus 0. But since 0 is not a positive constant, it's neither positive nor negative, it does not count, which gives us an answer of 8. So 8 is the thing that we would type in here. So as far as like some of those other common answers, remember I said something like 0 was one of them. And let me look back over here real quick. What was some other things? So we had a 0, we had a 4, but 4 didn't come up at all, but 13 did. And 13 just simply wasn't the, where the heck did this thing go? 13 wasn't the smallest constant. All right, so now here's a question. The question is, could you have done this without Desmos? And the answer is, yeah, you sure could, but it does entail having to factor this thing. So let me just walk you through that, because why not? I'm going to factor this thing by hand with no technology. I have 2x cubed plus 42x squared plus 208. And again, this is the way they intended you to do this question. However, with numbers like this, that Desmos is a sure winner in this case. Anyway, the first step of factoring is noticing that there is a GCF, a greatest common factor. They at least have x in common, so you can pull that out. But also, this is a 2, that's a 42, that's a 208. They're all even, so you can also pull out a 2. So a 2x, and now if I divide all of these things by 2x, then I'll have a smaller algebraic expression to factor. So this one is going to be an x squared, because 2x times x squared gives me a 2x cubed. This one, divide 42 by 2, I get a 21. Divide x squared by x, I get x. Plus, and now what is half of 208? That is 104. And then, of course, x divided by x is gone. So here's the thing that you just have to do. You just have to factor this guy right there. I wonder how this thing factors. It's a quadratic. We know how to factor quadratics. So on this one, using like the little AC method, I don't even have to worry about the a, because the a is an understood 1 times the 104. I'm looking for two things that multiply up to 104. And then for my middle term here, my two factors have to sum up to 21. So I have sum plus something is equal to 21. I need to know what times what is equal to 104 and adds up to 21. Now, as far as this goes, like that's 104, maybe the factors of this thing are not obvious, but the pro tip whenever you are factoring is to make a factor tree when the number is really big, like this. Pick anything that goes into 104. It's even, so 2 goes into it. Let's see, that is a 52. Okay, and then, oh, we got an even number again. So 2 goes into this, that'd be 25, 26. And 26 is even. Oh, 2 goes into it one more time with 13 left over. Now I've got nothing but prime numbers. These are the only things that could possibly work. Some combination of these factors, okay? And now since everything is positive, everything has to stay positive, and they're just going to add up. So if I look at my factors here, I know that I couldn't do something like 2 times 2 times 13 because that's a 26, and that's already over 21, which means I'm probably going to use the 13 as one of my factors. So 13 is one of the factors, and then if I look at the other ones, multiply those together, 2 times 2 times 2 is an 8. Do those numbers sound familiar? 8 times 13 gives us 104, and 8 plus 13 gives us 13. And whenever you have a leading coefficient of 1 in here, then these two things are the things that go into your factor. So you got a 2x times x plus 8 times x plus 13. And then, hey, there's the thing, the b, the positive constant that is the smallest number there. Oh yeah, I forgot to close my parentheses. Oops. Okay, and then one last thing if you care, and that is this. Let's say, for example, you struggled with factoring this guy. Remember, there is a cheat for that as well that you can use your calculator for. And so let's say that we don't know that this is an 8 and a 23. So I put instead some mystery numbers here. I put an X and I put a Y. And then we're going to use our calculator to help us figure out what X and Y could possibly be as the factors of 104. And ordinarily what we do is we solve this equation for Y. So we divide the X over. So Y is equal to 104 divided by X. And type that into the calculator like this. Desmos, in this instance, isn't as nice as the one in your TI calculator. I'll show you what I mean by that. So I'll just go over here to the third line, and I'll type in Y is equal to, it was 104, and then I want to divide this thing by X. Okay, so you don't actually want the graph. Sure, it graphed this weird looking green thing here. That's called the hyperbola, by the way. And yeah, I don't want that. I want a table. So how do you get a table from this? Well, you hit the little gear symbol, and then the very first icon there to the right of your equation is a little table. Okay, the only problem is, like on your TI calculator, what's going to happen is that it'll just auto-populate starting with like 0 if you have that set up, and just increase by 1 by integers for your X. Ours stalls out at 2, so you have to actually just go down here to your 2, underneath your 2, type in a 3, hit enter, type in a 4. Oh, look at that, it's doing it now. Now it's auto-populating for me, that's nice. So you just got to keep going down here until you find the factors that you need, and we just did. There's the 8, there's the 13, let's call it right there.